Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about The Entitled. The Entitled is a Filipino romantic comedy that tells the story of Belinda, a woman who is uprooted from a life of poverty to visit her estranged father, who has finally decided to reach out to her after so much time spent apart. However, their differing personalities begin to clash almost immediately. Not being used to her newfound sophisticated lifestyle, Belinda is forced to stumble her way through high society and become more civilized in her mannerisms. She receives help with this from a charming lawyer named Jacob, which leads off to an inevitable romance. I've been waiting for over a year to see a new Filipino movie on Netflix, and my anticipation turned to disappointment when I finally saw it. This movie was a painful endurance test to sit through with its juvenile comedy, nonsensical story and plot twists, and an absolutely unbearable protagonist. Alex Gonzaga plays the lead role of Belinda in this movie. I learned that she's a famous YouTuber in her home country of the Philippines, and while I'm sure her vlogs and videos are great, I think she needs to stay as far away from movies like these as she possibly can. Her character was just insufferable to put up with. She embodies all the cliches and stereotypes that one could think of for someone who's poor. She wears ragged clothes, has pimples instead of makeup, which are painfully fake by the way, and lacks basic common knowledge about everything around her. Her unfamiliarity with everyday objects and concepts constantly baffled me throughout the movie. I didn't understand how she never heard of a virtual assistant, yet was totally comfortable with using TikTok on her smartphone. Something as ordinary as a medium rare steak makes her raise an eyebrow. There's even an entire scene dedicated to her learning how to do a handshake. Seriously, a handshake. By far the worst trait about her though is her personality, and to say it's repulsive would be a massive understatement. She burps and farts to a ridiculous degree, and she's unusually loud and brash with how she presents herself to everyone, which really didn't endear me to her character. It almost feels like the movie is punching down at times with her character toward others who come from impoverished backgrounds. Not only does she lack the most essential, fundamental aspects of hygiene and manners, but she barely behaves like a real human being at all. She has this weird trait where she gets sick during points when she starts to feel nervous near others, which I had a hard time believing considering how extroverted she is. Apart from how random the sickness is, as it varies between vomiting and needing to take a dump, it's never explained as to why she has it or how it goes away. So it basically serves no purpose beyond gross out humor. What's even more weird is that her father doesn't seem all that fazed by her absurdity, which leads me to talk about her family background. Her father remains a blank slate for the entire movie, with his reasoning for wanting to be involved in Belinda's life again pretty much left up in the air. As for her mother, there's only one scene dedicated to highlighting her, and all that's revealed is that she died at a certain point in time. The movie is severely lacking in backstory for Belinda as a character that would have helped make her more sympathetic in her struggle to adapt to her new life, so all we're left with is an obnoxious gremlin. I felt so bad for Jacob in this movie. He's the only character that is remotely worth caring about, as he has a much more level-headed demeanor compared to everyone else, and the way everyone calls him attorney instead of Jacob is pretty funny. But he's not immune to criticism either. To start, I found it odd with how much his job as a lawyer is brought up, and yet the audience never sees him involved in anything law-related whatsoever. He feels more like a business executive with how often he attends meetings and sorts out Belinda's father's affairs, so the lack of consistency made it hard to follow along with his arc. Secondly, it took a long time for me to figure out that Jacob wasn't a member of Belinda's family. Maybe there's some cultural context I'm missing, but with how often he shows up and has dinner at Belinda's house, I genuinely thought that he was related to everyone, and this made the story more confusing, especially when the romantic tension started popping up. Thirdly, I don't know why a supposed lawyer like Jacob is being asked to train Belinda for a human resources job despite having a law background, or even how Belinda even got the job in the first place. There were so many plot-related details between the two that just didn't make any sense. The romantic angle that builds between the two leads is almost non-existent. The idea of a gender-swapped Lady in the Tramp scenario is intriguing and could have been done well, but Jacob ends up feeling more like a babysitter to Belinda with how often he has to watch after her, and the romantic sparks appear and disappear without warning, which leaves their chemistry falling flat. The movie does attempt to make things more interesting with the two later on, but it fails in its approach. One example of this involves a scene with a woman named Trixie, who Jacob is acquainted with, which hints at a possible love triangle, and then she disappears for the entire movie. There's pretty much zero effort put into the romance. It's clear that the filmmakers put more of a focus into the comedy than the romance, and the former is even worse than the latter. It mostly consists of fish out of water scenarios which, as I hinted at earlier with Belinda, are greatly exaggerated in their approach. A few examples include Belinda freaking out at the mere sight of a hotel lobby and getting the world's most extensive Brazilian wax, which I'll spare you the details on. Some of the jokes regarding Belinda's ignorance have the potential to be funny, but the movie is so far removed from subtlety, they end up being more annoying. A movie like this isn't complete without its fair share of slapstick and gross-out humor as well. Aside from Belinda's boorish antics, it was difficult to watch any scene that had food in it, because it often resulted in her pigging out on it or throwing it up afterward. The movie reaches for as many low-hanging fruit with its jokes as it can, and all of them are rotten to their core. The only thing I actually did laugh at was an editing mistake the filmmakers made. When Belinda first arrives at her father's house and she's meeting everyone, there's a split-second jump cut where Belinda is interacting with her sister Caitlin despite not having met her yet, before the scene returns to normal. This occurs in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and it was so jarring that I couldn't help but laugh out loud. When the movie isn't being cringeworthy with its comedy, it's straight up boring to sit through. A part of this is because it suffers from tonal shifts, often occurring multiple times in the same scene, where the story tries to be serious and characters end up getting bogged down in undeveloped drama. The worst example being a subplot with Caitlin that goes nowhere. It's bad enough when it abruptly goes from comedic to dramatic, but it's even worse when it goes from dramatic to comedic. Anytime something moody is occurring on screen, it's almost always interrupted by a record skip sound effect and characters resume yelling at each other. God, it was annoying. On top of all this stupidity, there's a plot twist in the final act that completely turns the movie on its head. Without spoiling anything, it's nothing short of illogical, the drama behind it is gone almost as soon as it appears, and once again it caused massive tonal shifts that irritated the hell out of me. And this leads to a message about self-discovery and the importance of working one's way to the top, which is hilarious considering Belinda did nothing to earn her place. She's thrust into wealth and takes advantage of it for selfish reasons, never puts any effort into her job until she comes to an epiphany, and blames all of her shortcomings on the fact that she was raised in Nalapak. I'm not sure if Nalapak is a real place or not, maybe someone in the comments can fill me in, but seeing her shift blame so much made her thoroughly unlikable. Present circumstances don't define your future, and Belinda and the story's complete lack of productivity in this regard makes this movie's attempts at telling an honest rags to riches story way more hilarious than the actual jokes it tries to peddle. Overall, The Entitled is a terrible excuse of a rom-com that fails to deliver any intentional laughs or a meaningful romance. If you like romantic comedies and you were looking forward to seeing a new Filipino movie on Netflix, spare yourself the disappointment and just stay away from this one. It's not worth anyone's time. Again, I might be missing some context behind it that only someone from the Philippines will get, but I honestly can't see any redeeming factors behind it. Its infuriating main character, unfunny comedy, less than half-baked romance, and poor attempts at social commentary make it an utter mess that no one should feel entitled to watch. What did you think about this movie? Were you as annoyed with its comedy as I was, or did you find something about it to enjoy that I didn't mention? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of The Entitled. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the American musical romantic drama, Purple Hearts. Bye bye!